Thank you, Andrew, for taking the time to share your insights on 403B and 457 retirement plans. Andrew began his career as an 8th and ninth grade math teacher in Washington, D.C. Through his experience in the classroom, he quickly realized how demanding teaching profession can be and how difficult it is for many educators to find the time to learn the details of their retirement benefits and personal finances. What makes Andrew's perspective unique is that he experienced these challenges firsthand before becoming a certified financial planner professional. After helping fellow teachers better understand their retirement plans and financial decisions, he discovered the passion for financial education that ultimately led him from the classroom to financial planning. I invited Andrew to join us because of his unique career path and his dedication to helping educators and government employees make informed decisions about their financial futures. Thank you again for contributing to our class.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. As you started your career as a teacher before becoming a financial planner, what lessons from teaching have helped you most in your work with clients today?
I think as a teacher, one of the things I learned to do that I didn't know at first because I was horrible in my first year of teaching was the best way to teach is to put myself in the student's shoes and think about what kind of knowledge are they coming into this lesson with, or this unit, or whatever it is. What kinds of questions are going to come up? What kinds of things are going to potentially trip them up? And that's empathy. And in financial planning, I find that I am doing my best work when I am thinking about how the client's experiencing what we're going to talk about. Where are they coming from? What kinds of notions are they coming in with? What kind of biases? What is their background and experience and identities that are impacting the kinds of conversations that we're going to have? So before every meeting, not without fail, but when I'm when I'm at my most present and doing my best work, in the 5 to 10 minutes before I hop on that call or I step into that meeting, I close my eyes and I think about what is this person coming into this meeting with? What do they have on their mind? What kind of energy do they have? What do they ultimately really need out of this meeting? And that really drives the kind of interaction that I want to facilitate for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think especially for professionals who have a heavy workload, coming into that meeting, especially at the end of the day, could be the end of the day. They could be carrying things from their personal life or professional life into the meeting. I love how that you're making the experience for the client a enjoyable and uplifting experience.
Thanks. As a money nerd, sometimes I get so excited by all my charts and graphs and analysis and these like really technical things, and then I realize like, oh my God, this person has 2 kids that they need to go pick up. They have a really busy job. They maybe they got a baby that's keeping them up at night, and they just need to get enrolled in their 401k and choose the investment options and then get the heck off of that call. And so sometimes that little exercise helps me really avoid just a meeting that a client is not going to enjoy or get value from.
Definitely. Can we talk about financial planning software charts and numbers? I
Of
know a lot of
course.
people who want to present those to clients and present all these nerdy graphs, which I'm grateful for the financial planning software. But I often see that being very overwhelming for clients to just see all those background numbers that we think are cool, but maybe other clients may get overwhelmed or not think it's as fun as we do.
Absolutely. Yes. I, I've been doing this for almost 8 years now. And when I first started, I sort of felt like I had to prove all the work that I did for the client. And so early on in onboarding a client, I would show them everything I did in the financial planning software. I would show them all the retirement projections, and you have an 87% Monte Carlo rate of success. and you're going to die at 95 with $13 million. And if we make this change, you'll die with $14 million and 92%, and that's better. I just had last week, I'm starting with a new client. She's in her late 50s, and she came to me because she wanted to figure out if it was possible for her to retire at 60. And in that first meeting, instead of going through the 25-minute exercise of showing that financial planning software, we talked about her day to day. We looked at her expenses, and I essentially told her, I think it's very realistic for you to retire at 60. I think there's a lot of things we need to optimize, and we're going to talk through some of those opportunities. And you could even potentially retire earlier. And I could see her shoulders just lighten and she felt a little bit better because she didn't hire me to show her all the work that I did and all that effort that I did and feel really good and smart as a financial advisor. She hired me to help her feel confident about her next steps and make sure that all the financial planning stuff we do is aligned to those, and we can do that in a lot less time often than we think as financial advisors.
It reminds me of going back to being a math teacher of, how the math teachers ask you, like, show all your work. Like, we want to know every single step. Well, that doesn't always transition into financial planning.
I always tell clients, I'm a total dork about this stuff. I find that when I used to send a 20-page financial plan with every chart and graph we ever looked at the whole time, I found nobody read that but me. And so then I condensed it down to just the one page. These are the things you really need to know. If you want to dive into the charts and graphs, believe me, I will be thrilled to look at the charts and graphs with you. And that's always there in the background, and I let my clients know that, but it's not where I generally lead unless I know that's something the client wants.
So, talking about your time as a teacher, what financial challenges do you see educators struggle with most often?
I think in general, they're trying to make decisions about their future and their finances in a ocean of complexity and fine print. It can be really confusing for teachers. When I was a teacher in my school district, we had, on top of the pension plan, which you had to figure out and understand, which most people didn't understand, myself included, we had 8 different options for which retirement plan provider to choose and zero guidance about how to make that decision. And then on top of that, a lot of us had student loans. A lot of us were trying to figure out how to budget in an expensive city, and this is Washington, D.C., and just starting out in our careers with those kinds of salaries. And so balancing all of that with busy jobs, because teaching is exhausting. It's a really hard job. To this day, it's the most difficult job I've ever done. That was the hardest thing.
Yeah, I've seen, especially in California, I don't know what it is in the Washington, D.C. area, but teachers are moving from CalPERS to CalSTARS and trying to understand the difference between CalPERS and CalSTARS. It's like, it's almost as if they make it more confusing than what it really needs to be for someone who's already burnt out and overwhelmed by their position.
Absolutely. I mean, the pension's one thing. You can have all kinds of conversations about the government's, like the way that they make things complex. I think with the financial system, the complexity is on purpose. Absolutely 100%. Like when you try to move your money out of a financial institution, like do a rollover after you leave a job, there's a reason that form is 20 pages. There's a reason that they want to make you get a medallion signature guarantee and you have to send it in by fax or carrier pigeon and you got to get your spouse to sign off on it. Like they put those hoops and those 20 pages of fine print in there to make it more difficult to get your money out, to make it more confusing, because the more confusing it is, the more likely we are to just say like, okay, I don't have time for this. Great. You're in a fancy suit and I'm going to go ahead and just sign on because I know I'm supposed to be saving in a retirement plan. So I totally agree with you. The complexity makes it easier for companies to take advantage of people.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate. I want to segue into talking about your experience with high fee 403B plans and what sparked your interest in financial planning. What should people look for when evaluating cost, investments, and features in employer-sponsored retirement plans?
So my journey figuring this out, it took a couple of years in DC public schools, but ultimately I figured out that the 403B retirement plan that I was saving in, it was called Voya at the time. AXA Equitable is another really popular one in the school district. I was paying about 30 times the fees inside my plan of the lower cost alternative plan through my school district. And what that meant is that by the end of my career, I was going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars less in my retirement account than if I had just chosen a different plan. And in many cases, I wasn't going to have better investment options for these higher fees. I was actually going to have worse investment options for those higher fees. So I was super frustrated by it. I spent my remaining years with the school district before I left to just become a financial advisor, campaigning against these plans, uh, getting in trouble for like posting fee information in the stairwells and compound return graphs in the bathrooms. Uh, and and so ultimately what people need to figure out, especially educators, is what are all the fees that I am paying inside this plan. You can call the number on your statement to get somebody and say, hey, I want to know every single fee that I'm paying. I want to know any annual fees that are charged. Is there a platform fee with this plan? Is there if you have a 403B, there's a good chance you have a mortality and expense charge. That's often annual and sometimes higher than 1%. People don't even know they're paying it. If you've got an annuity product in there, there could be sub account fees, there could be rider fees. There's probably going to be expense ratios on any of the investment choices you have inside of a plan. Those can range from super cheap, like barely anything, 0.01, 0.02, 0.03%, all the way up to 1.2, 2%. Those differences can, like I said, amount to hundreds of thousands or even potentially millions of dollars in fees. So it's important to find that out. And what are all the options that you have? Because a lot of teachers have more than one retirement plan option.
Yeah, sometimes a quick switch can make a whole lot of difference when it comes to the ending amount in retirement.
Absolutely.
And I feel unfortunate for the people who didn't figure that out or haven't figured it out yet, but I'm glad you took the opportunity to educate people, even if it meant getting in trouble by posting graphs in the bathroom.
There was toward the end of my time there when I just had enough, there was a mandatory cybersecurity training that the whole district had to go to. And there was one of those boring webinars, and somebody asked, the question was like, what do you do if you have a sheet full of student social security numbers out on your desk? What should you do? And it's like, A, leave it out on your desk in plain sight. B, the obviously correct answer. And everybody's typing in the chat like B, B, B. And so I type, AXA Equitable charges 30 times the fees of the lower cost 403B alternative. Please don't go to their informational session this week. And then I got like a formal reprimand for inappropriate use of technology during that webinar. I think it was the best piece of learning that was in that webinar personally, but yeah, the head of HR didn't like that.
All power to you. So other than fees and 403B plans, what are some other important financial topics that financial educators or government employees need to understand?
Yeah, I think educators and government employees, or really anybody, needs to understand the core numbers of their cash flow, right? Especially, so how much do you make? So a shockingly high number of people don't actually know how much they make per year, and then break that down to each month. And then of the money that you're taking home each month, what percent of that is going to fixed costs? This is the number one place I see people get into trouble between their monthly rent or mortgage payment, their potentially a car loan, insurance costs, student loans, subscriptions. I include groceries as part of fixed costs just because it's more or less the same amount each month. What percent of your take-home pay is going to fixed costs? And if you're somewhere in the 50 to 60% range, that's a pretty healthy place to be. But I see a lot of people, especially parents of young kids, maybe they have kids in daycare, they can be up 70, 80, 90, or even more than 100% losing money every single month. And no amount of picking the right retirement plan or the right investment options is going to get you out of having a fixed cost rate that's 90 or 100 or even more than 100%. So that's huge. And then after fixed costs, know your savings rate. What percent of your total income each month is going into savings? And so by that, I mean retirement plans, IRAs, or other kinds of investments. Sometimes you're setting money aside in an emergency fund. I think everybody should be saving at minimum 10% of their gross income each month. And I think it's great to try to get that to 15 or 20% or even higher if you want to save really aggressively and try to have a lot of flexibility later in life. On top of that, then I think you can start looking at, make sure I'm saving for retirement. A lot of employers have a match that they will offer. You should definitely save at least enough to get the match. And then understand if you have a pension plan, have some sense of how that's going to work. In DC, for example, if you work a long career, you'll probably get about 60% of your income as a pension for life and retirement. And for a lot of people, that's amazing to have that. But you need to be saving a little bit on top of that. So understand your retirement and benefits, and ultimately get your core cash flow right. Those are the most important things.
Yeah, cash flow is so important. I think especially with inflation that has been going on the last 5 years or so, or even more. It's sad to say, but yes, it's important that we're analyzing our cash flow and determining where numbers are going and if it's really going towards something that is valuable to us, or we just throwing money in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
For those, as you said, contributing to the pension, and then in access to the retirement savings, focusing on saving in the 403Bs or potentially 457 plans. What are some key differences to those plans, and why might one prioritize one over the other?
Been doing this for a while now. I have not yet found a situation where I have recommended someone use a 403B plan instead of a 457B plan. 457B is almost always a better option. It's pretty rare when it's not. And the reason why, the first big reason is they're both retirement plans where you can save and invest for retirement, kind of similar to a 401k. The biggest difference I see is a 457 is kind of like a 401k for government employees. And that includes people like firefighters, police officers, construction, like metro folks, a lot of people who retire before the age of 60 because they have these good pensions. And so with the 457B, you can access that money, unlike a 401k or a 403B, where you're taking a 10% penalty in most cases to access it before 59 and a half. A 457, as soon as you leave that job, you can access that money with no penalty. You'll pay taxes on it just the same as a 403B or a 457 or a 401k, but the no penalty thing gives a ton of flexibility for people inside that 457. So for people like me, I mean, until I became a financial advisor, I was like, I'm on the financial independence Reddit and I'm going to retire when I'm 35 and live on $25,000 a year. And I was like, I need my 457B because that's how I'm going to pay for expenses in retirement at this young age. But people can use it to start families, take time off and start families, start businesses, travel, or early retirement. So that's like a huge, huge advantage. Other differences are often 403B plans, especially within education. They're run by insurance companies. And often 457B plans are run by other kinds of more traditional financial and investment institutions. And what you find with insurance company run 403Bs is often much, much higher fees. You're talking about 20, 30, 40 times the fees inside the 403B than the 457. Not every single time, but rarely have I ever seen a 403B that is cheaper within the same employer than the 457B option. Now, the 403B sales rep, just be ready for this, because when you say there's really no reason, the one rare situation in which it does have an advantage, if you are still working between 60 and 70, you can actually pull money out of your 403B while you're still working. Your 457B, you wouldn't. you sometimes often cannot pull money out of it while you're still working. That is such a rare situation to me of when that would be relevant, because why are you pulling money out of your retirement plan if you're still working full time in your 60s? So I almost never recommend using a 403b plan over a 457. I have
Yeah.
actually one more thing I want to add. For a 401k or a 403b or 457, there's an annual maximum that you can put into that plan. This year it's $24,500. And with a 457, if you have both a 457 and a 403b, you're actually able to double that annual maximum. So if you hit the max in that 457, because almost always that's going to be the better choice, you can save another 24,500 inside your 403b. So for your super saver type people who are really like, I'm just riding my bike around and I'm happy eating my rice and beans and saving as much as I can for retirement, like great. Use the 457, fill that up first, then maybe you can think about contributing to the 403b after that.
Talking about fire and in eating rice and beans, if that's your lifestyle, do you see a lot of clients who are interested in financial independence or the fire movement?
I see some. It's not my specialty. It's not who am. I don't think I'm best with serving those kinds of folks. A lot of my work focuses on ongoing financial planning. People hire me because they have busy lives, they have some added complexity, and they want to offload some of the mental burden of all those decisions and probably offload some of the work. If you're pursuing financial independence, a lot of times you like managing your own finances, you like handling your investments, and there are advisors who are really focused on serving that crowd. Their models are just a little bit different. They might not manage client investments, for example, because the fire crowd is more interested in, having their stuff at Vanguard or Fidelity on their own. And maybe they're doing things on more of a project basis or an hourly basis as opposed to ongoing type of financial planning. So most of those folks, they probably don't seek me out. They probably find another advisor.
Understood. For teachers in certain states and districts, Social Security coverage may not be available. How does the absence of Social Security benefits in some public school systems affect retirement planning? And what should educators in those situations be thinking about differently when utilizing the 403b or 457 plan?
Yeah, do you mean the fact that in some districts you don't pay the Social Security tax and so you're not accumulating Social Security credits during that time?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So super important planning thing. Number one, just know whether you are contributing to Social Security or not. That's going to get you a lot of the way. So in DC public schools, for example, teachers do not pay Social Security tax, which is 6.2% of their paycheck. They do pay into a pension, which is 8% of their paycheck. So it's a little bit higher. But if you work a long career in DC public schools, you're going to get a little bit higher benefit from the pension than you would have from Social Security. So as long as you understand that and you're continuing to save and invest, you're probably going to be okay. The other big development here is, I can't remember what year it was, but it was maybe a few years ago. They eliminated something called the windfall elimination provision, which for teachers who didn't pay into Social Security but had worked enough in other jobs, like maybe they were government workers in a different type of agency or they worked at a private company for a while, they had their Social Security reduced if they were also receiving one of those pensions. That went away, so it's going to make it a lot more generous to people who are receiving a pension and weren't contributing to Social Security during those working years, but had enough from like maybe teaching summer school or getting bonuses from their teaching work, like a lot of DC teachers get. I think just understand which one you are and have a sense of what you're going to expect from your pension and Social Security and retirement, and invest enough to cover the rest of your expenses.
And I feel like that's an easy win for a financial planner to help a client is asking for their pay stub and looking to see whether or not Social Security tax is deducted or not.
Absolutely. Pay stub, I would say, is maybe the number one most important thing a financial planner needs to collect from their clients. That's going to tell you what kind of taxes they're having withheld from their check, you can figure out. People hate to go onto TurboTax in March or April and say, what? I owe $4,000. I owe $3,000. You can predict the future if you've got their paycheck and you know what's going on with how much is being taken out in taxes. You can tell them, hey, you're not having enough withheld here. I can help you adjust this so that you don't get a big mean surprise next April. You can see what's going on with their benefits. Are they paying for like 10 different optional accidental death and dismemberment coverage and cancer insurance and all these other things? Maybe they do or don't need those. You can see how much they're saving for retirement. You can see how much they make, because like I said, a lot of people don't know that. And of course, are they paying into Social Security? What can they expect there?
Yeah, I may take us on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's really interesting, especially the first 5 years of retirement. Those who have a pension plan often have multiple sources of income, as in they're withdrawing from retirement accounts and receiving the pension, and they don't always withhold the right amount. So usually those first 5 years are, if they're not getting their withholdings correct, are kind of testing years to figure out what their taxes look like in retirement.
Yes, and that's a huge value that a financial planner can bring to somebody who's going through that life transition, because it's nobody knows how they're going to go from all the taxes were taken care of by what they were taking out of each paycheck to now all of a sudden I'm responsible for setting it up. I'm responsible for potentially paying taxes on what I'm taking out of investment accounts. That's really scary to have that kind of big change. And then you're, oh, I'm filing taxes for the first time. And what am I going to owe 10, 20 plus $1,000? With a financial planner, you can figure out what's the most efficient way to get this income so that I'm saving the most in lifetime taxes and stay on top of the taxes throughout the year, either having enough withheld or making payments each quarter to stay ahead of it and avoid a big bill and potentially underpayment penalties.
Many educators and government employees don't spend their entire careers with one employer. How do 403B or 457 plans fit in the conversations about career changes, sabbaticals, leaving public service, or transitioning to a second career?
This is so common. In this 2026, it's so rare to see someone who just, they get their first job and they stay in that job with that organization until they're in retirement age. And what I see a lot of clients with when they first come to me is they're like got these Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs of, this 403B and this IRA and this 401k and this old pension plan with $5,000 in it. And so what as a financial planner, what we can help people do is organize all of that, consolidate, simplify, and make sure that all of those things are aligned to what they're ultimately trying to do. Because it's rare that if you've got 5 different accounts left over from old jobs, that they're all doing exactly what you want them to do. There's probably one or more of them have some really high fees in there. Often one is just sitting in cash and not growing at all. That's a classic one. And so organizing, streamlining, and like decluttering, because we have to, as Ramit Sethi says, we have to fight for simplicity, because if we don't, things just sprawl out and get more complicated and we have more credit cards and more accounts. And so keeping track, like when you leave a job, think about, hey, what am I doing with this account and why?
Yeah, I've caught a couple missing accounts here and there.
Yes, absolutely.
And part of that feels liberating to find it, and part of me feels sad to find it because it's been missing for so long and the client never realized it was actually missing.
I've worked with plenty of educators and government employees who paid into a pension system, maybe the DC pension system, maybe the federal employee pension system. They've left and they don't realize that they have anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000 that is their money that is inside that pension system that they could either leave and collect a pension benefit, or they could take out and invest in an IRA. Super common. Another thing I do for all new clients is I go to missingmoney.com, which is the unclaimed property website. I don't know if you ever used it, but you can search your name and you can see like, wait, oh, I had a refund from Verizon from this bill when I was whatever age. And I found sometimes thousands of dollars for clients on via that site. So so there's a value in continuing to consolidate things just so we don't forget about these accounts.
Yeah, it was funny when I first realized that a website existed. I started like searching everybody I knew in that website. Like,
Did you find anything?
oh yeah, it was like when Oprah goes like, "Here's your money, here's your money." It was
Yeah,
kind of like that.
you were just texting all your friends, go submit this claim. It's you.
Mostly family members,
BP owes you
but
something.
yeah, yeah,
PG&E check.
yeah. It was a lot of like credit card stuff, like closing of credit cards or receive like a gift card attached to the credit card, or like as you said, like PG&E utility bills.
Yeah, I
Any
hope your friends got you a drink or a dinner or something like that for helping them.
it always makes a way around, right? What you
Yes,
give is what you get.
there you go. Spirit of
Um,
generosity.
definitely. So, as we wrap up this interview, is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you think is important for students to know?
I think if you yourself have access to a 403b or you know somebody who's an educator, one of the best resources out there is an organization called 403B Wise. It's run by a former teacher and the spouse of a teacher, and they are an incredible. They have a Facebook group called, I think it's 403B Wise, or now they're like 457B Wise because they also recommend the 457. There's so go see them. They have amazing resources on how to find out all about your plan and the fees, and there's free help in the Facebook group. And then 403B Compare is another website where you can go on and find out all the fees associated with a 403B plan without having to, call every different plan.
For students who want to learn more about you, what's the easiest way to learn more about you?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's a very uncreative company name, Katz-Moses Financial. It's katzmosesfinancial.com. You can see more about how I work, what the process is. I'm also, while I try to not be on social media as much as possible, I am sort of on LinkedIn. So yeah, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. That's probably the place I engage the most.
Thank you again for all your insights. It was really insightful and I had a great time. Thank you.
I had a great time too. Thanks so much for having me.